Hello and welcome everyone to this another episode in the series of ancient history of Bharat. All right. Now, from this episode forwards, there is one more thing that I am adding to this series of ancient history of Bharat is now I realize that there are also people out there who prefer to read things as hard as it might, you know, be to believe that there are indeed people out there who still prefer to read, but I guess yes, there are still people out there who wish to read things. All right, and keeping in mind all those people who wish to read. Okay, now a written synopsis, okay, a written report about what I discussed in each and every chapter from this point forwards. Obviously the past chapters are there in video format, so if you want to if you want to know about the past content, you would have to look at the videos. Okay, but from this episode forwards, I would also make sure that I publish an article on our social media platform, that is X, for people who wish to read my learnings in this journey. Okay, for those of you who are joining me for the first time, I would like to let you know that this is a series that I started, and I'm starting with this book. This is the first book. Okay, now here is what I do. After finishing school, after working as a teacher for a few years, I realized that our history, okay, things about our history and about our culture are majorly corrupted. Okay, at least the way they are being taught in these schools, in the contemporary schools, they are majorly skewed. Okay, they are, I would say, they are lies, they are blatant lies. Okay, whatever that you might have learned if you are born, okay, in the 1990s, and anything like from 1947 onwards, okay, from 1947 onwards to the current day, whatever history that you might have learned in your school, it is more likely that it was false. It was propaganda from the you know propaganda that was designed to further a certain political ideology. Okay, now I'm not going to get into it because then things will start getting political, and you all know what happens when things get political in our country. All right. Okay, so we have reached the age of the Upanishads. All right, Upanishads, they were the culmination in all the forms, in philosophical forms, in the spiritual forms, and in whatever other forms conceivable. The Upanishads were a culmination of the Vedic thought, and by that extension, the Aryan thought. Okay. So today in this chapter number 25, we are going to focus on political and legal institutions. Okay. Now there is something called as the Dharma Sutras. Okay, Dharma as a word has been misconstrued, misinterpreted, misunderstood, I would like to say. Okay, because so far I've met very few people, okay, who really understand the meaning of dharma. You ask anyone, okay, even saying the word dharma, it is not dharma, it's dharma. Okay, so you meet anybody from your day-to-day life, all they will, if you ask them what do you mean by dharma, they'll say religion. Okay, and it's no fault of theirs, because in our schools we have been taught in this manner that dharma, it means, is the equivalent of religion. Okay, but I beg to differ, and so should you from this point forwards. Dharma is not the equivalent of religion. Okay, dharma is a set of principles, okay, that you must follow to make sure that you do not break this chain of cosmic order. Okay, so there are certain steps that you are required to follow, there are certain sacrifices that you are required to do. Okay, and if you don't do that, you will disturb the cosmic order, and hence you will get punished by Varuna. We have covered this thing sufficiently in our previous videos, so if you find it very difficult to understand, so just to give you a little brief recap about it, Rita, or the cosmic order, okay, it's something, in a way, things progress in this world. You cannot hinder that progress, you cannot change that progress. Okay, the cosmic order is a never-ending cycle. Okay, the only thing that you can do is make sure, okay, that you do not diverge or divert from it. All right, so let me just make a note of it, because obviously I'm going to publish this article, so can't I do both of them simultaneously? It's going on, right? All right, okay. Okay. Alright, so yes, the Dharma Sutras do not contain any systematic exposition of legal principles and political doctrines such as we find in the Dharma Shastras and the Artha Shastra of later age, nor does their conception of law and politics conform to our present ideas on the subject. Okay, there is a fundamental difference between Shastras and the Sutras. Remember, Shastras were, like the divine revelations, to say the least. To make you understand in a very simple language, Shastras were divine revelations. Sutras, however, they were the Vedangas, meaning things that you need to know in order for you to understand the Vedas. Okay. The state, okay, the people during the the age of the Upanishads, how did they view the state? When I say state, okay, I mean, shit, how did that happen? Okay, so how did they view state? When I say state, I mean, it is more like the definition of government, the way you view authority. Okay, that is what is the definition of state in the current context. Okay, so in the Upanishads, how did the people who lived during the age of the Upanishads, how did they view the state? Okay, let's see. They view the state or society as an organic whole in which different elements such as the king and the people play their part according to dharma or law, imposed or at least sanctioned by the divine will. Okay, so the state or the government that you see is not just a singular entity, it's a whole thing. Okay, you yourself are a contributor to the state. Okay, so even king and the people, there are people who play their part in the functioning of the state, and there is a king such as the leader. Okay, currently if we had to place somebody as an equivalent of a king, it would be the prime minister in the parliamentary democracy. Okay, life is also regarded as whole without any sharp distinction between public and private or individual or collective. I'm going to read this again because this is very important. Okay, life is also regarded as a whole without any sharp distinction between public and private or individual and collective. As a matter of fact, the collective organization of society dominates the idea of individual persons. Okay, so you as an individual take a back seat. Okay, what you are is merely one of the constituent units of the whole that we talked about as a state. Okay, so your function is merely, okay, so you're, like I said, okay, there is nothing such as a private life or a public life. Everything that you do is in coherence with the state. Okay, your actions must align with the welfare of the state. Hence I keep on saying this, that all your actions must align to the betterment of dharma. Okay, each individual has his duty and responsibility rather than rights and privileges fixed by law and custom, and this applies as much to the king as to his meanest subject. Okay, now there is this idea of liberty, okay, that if you live in a democratic state, okay, you get some of your rights. That's not how it works. Okay, during the age of the Upanishads, okay, what was stressed upon? Your duty. Each individual has his duty and responsibility rather than rights and privileges. Okay, so the primary importance was given to duty and responsibility, not to rights and privileges. Think about it. In a democracy, do you first get your rights and liberties, or do you first do your duties and fulfill your responsibilities? And your rights are a byproduct of, you having fulfilled your responsibilities. Okay, this is the fundamental difference between the conception of democracy of the West. Okay, because they say that the moment from which you become democratic, okay, by default you gain some rights, and one of those rights is right to liberty. But that's not how it works. Just because simply you exist, you cannot claim to have some rights. You can only claim to have some rights only after you have fulfilled some duties or responsibilities towards the state. That is how, so only after doing your due that you accrue some debt on the state, and hence the state, to repay that debt, they give you your rights in return. That is how it works, and that is the fundamental difference between the conception of democracy in Bharat and the conception of democracy in the West. Okay, hence you see that this this idea of protests, I don't know if protests really work or not, but it's like more recently, taking the example of France, I mean there were some political parties who won the elections, and the people belonging to the other part of the political spectrum, they could not accept this fact that how could they win that election, and so they came down on streets protesting that how come political parties towards the right got elected in this election. It's the mandate of the people, so you are protesting against the mandate of the people. To say the very least, it's foolish. So like I said, yes, that is the fundamental difference. So first it is you do your duties and fulfill your responsibilities. So by virtue of you having fulfilled your duties and fulfilled your responsibilities, a debt is accrued on the state. Okay, and hence to clear out that debt, the state gives you your rights, and that is how it works, and that is how it should work or must work. Okay, each man has a recognized function. To perform this function successfully is his highest object in life, a duty not merely political, social and moral, but also religious in character. So whatever duty or responsibility you have, okay, those things that you need to do in order to get your rights in return, okay, those are your highest object in life. That is what people living in the time of the Upanishads believe. Okay, your ultimate goal of life is not to be rich, as it is being propagated in social media platforms, and there are many influencers out there who teach you how to become rich and whatnot. Okay, but if you are born in the state of Bharat, if you are born as a national of Bharat, okay, your highest goal or the highest object in life is to fulfill your duty towards the state, not to become extremely rich and live a luxurious lifestyle. That was what was believed in the age of the Upanishads. And this duty, this performance of duty was not political, it was not social, it was not moral, but it was religious in character. And this definition of religious is, do not limit it to the very narrow definition of religion that the West teaches you. That's not how you can define religion. Okay. Like the modern collectivist theories such as fascism, this view raises society above individuals. Now there are some scholars out there, and most of them, they will get triggered by the fact that I say this. Okay, they'll say, no, are you talking about National Socialism? You know what happened the last time somebody advocated the cause of National Socialism? To hell with Hitler. Okay, he tried to copy some of our principles of democracy. He failed at it terribly. Okay, but that does not mean that we abandon certain principles that were written in the Upanishads, and just because some mindless imposition of that rule by some, I don't want to use any harsh words, not to speak ill of the dead, but now that he is dead, okay, you cannot use that as a logic, that since that individual applied this philosophy is entirely wrong. Okay, It's just how things function in our part of the world. Deal with it. Okay. This view raises society above individuals and strikes at the very root of personality or individuality. But there is an important difference. For the allegiance here is not to any party or political principle, but to dharma, conceived as eternal and immutable law of order, which is divine in character and does not emanate from human will. Okay. Now let's say, okay, there will be people out there who will ask, okay, all these talk about philosophy is good, but if I am given to do certain duties, what is the motivation that I have? Okay, I cannot simply just act on this conviction that if I perform these duties, I will get my rights one day. What is the basis of it? It is based on what? Okay, and here it says it is the welfare of the state itself. Okay. You raise the society above individuals, strikes at the very root of personality and individuality. Okay. Now let me explain this point slightly differently. Okay. In our national anthem, we say, okay, there is a line in our national anthem that we use, that is Bharat Bhagya Vidhata, meaning, okay, Bharat, your country must shape your destiny. So anything that you do, okay, anything that you do must be, okay, must be to the betterment of your nation, that is Bharat. And that is how you stand up to this line in your national anthem that you so dearly chant or sing in your schools. How will Bharat be the, creator of your destiny? Because you are required to rise above your level of individuality. Okay, but there is, for the allegiance here is not to any party. I'm not asking you to align with any political party. I'm asking you to align with dharma, that is the cosmic order. Okay, the immutable law or order which is divine in character and does not emanate from human will. Okay, dharma does not come from human will. R.C. Majumdar writes this on page number 487. So your allegiance must be to the state, and state, as the West defines state as political party, a game of politics between the left and the right, which again has come out from their political movements, and why have we adopted it still remains a topic of debate. But putting that aside, all right. Next up is on page number 488. Just a second. Alright, we get back to it. So yeah, such is the background against which state is conceived in the Dharma Sutra. It lays down the duty of the king and the people and does not worry about the rights of the latter and checks against the tyranny of the former. For failure to do so, his duty, the king is sure to be visited with inadequate penalties both in this world and the next. This was considered to be a sufficient deterrent, and we do not hear of the popular assemblies called Sabha and Samitis, which in days of old regulated the affairs of state and controlled the power of the king. Okay, so yeah, I mean, you've got to take these things with a pinch of salt. I mean, because these things were in practice, there cannot be everything good about it. Obviously there is going to be something that is bad about it. So yes, there was no a system of checks and balances for the king. Okay, and the only thing that deterred him from doing bad things or going away or being morally corrupted was that he'll get punishments, whether in this life or in the next, or sometimes even both. Okay. A high intellectual and moral discipline and military training are prescribed for him. Okay, this is something that remains constant. If you live in this part of the world, if you are born as a national of Bharat, okay, so if you want to earn respect, if you want to be highly regarded by the society, okay, you have to excel in both the realms. Okay, you have to be good, you have to be extremely well read in the current definition, extremely intellectual, knowledgeable, well read. At the same time, you should also have an extreme knowledge about the martial arts. When I say martial arts, I mean you should be extremely in touch with your martial spirit. Okay. He must be fully instructed in the threefold sacred sciences and in logic, and learn the management of chariots and the use of the bow. He shall be holy in acts and speech, pure and of subdued senses. So, I guess the subdued senses over here means like the person who is sitting on the ultimate throne of the state. That person must be, how can I say this? That person must have control over his sense organs. Okay, controlling your senses is like the ultimate thing. I mean, yeah. So it is senses. That is how we perceive things, and that is how one thing leads to another. So the person who is also supposed to be a king must have a good control over his senses. He cannot desire things that are detrimental to the interest of the state, and by that logic to dharma. Okay. That this was no mere pious wish, but conceived as a fundamental duty of the state, would appear from the injunction that if the stolen property is not recovered, he shall pay its value out of the treasury. Okay, justice, the idea of justice, it was simply not just a duty of the state. Okay, if you look at it currently, there is this widespread, knowledge amongst people that justice, okay, dispensation of justice is like the ultimate goal of democracy, or ultimate goal of a state. Right now, in the contemporary world, what you see is it is said that judiciary has to be completely divorced from the state. But in the Upanishads, it was, like very fundamental to the state. It is only the state that can do justice, not, if you divorce, or if you completely, what is the word that I'm looking for? If you completely separate both these things, justice and the power of state, okay, that would be not right, and that is what we have done so far in the name of westernizing your democracy. But earlier in the days of the Upanishads, okay, dispensation of justice was the fundamental duty of the state. It was not something to be holy or pious or sacred. It was the fundamental duty of the state to do justice. Okay. The taxes were regarded as pay received by the king for protecting his subjects. Okay, for those of you political science students, I guess you might have heard about this social contract theory. If I'm not wrong, it was, I guess, John Locke who came up with this social contract theory, or who was it? It could be, no, I think it was not Immanuel Kant. I guess it was John Locke. Okay, I might be wrong, but for those of you who are watching this video, you can confirm it. But yes, so this entire idea of social contract theory, meaning you're voting a political party in power, and they are in return, they are ensuring that you get your rights. Okay, so this was the social contract theory, like it's a give and take. Next is in the Asvalayana Griya Sutra, we find that when a battle is beginning, the Purohita stands to the west of the king's chariot and mutters appropriate mantras from the Rig Veda while he makes the king put on his armor and hands over to him bow and quiver. It is also laid down that the king should commence the battle in the formation invented by the Aditya or by the Usanas. It would almost appear that the ritual even dictated military tactics to the king. Okay, so all of this, I would say it was written down for the king. Chanting of hymns was given a superiority over anything else. The influence of the Purohita in moderating the autocratic zeal of the king cannot be lost sight of in any appraisal of the political theory of those days. The number of priests at the court of a king may be many, but there is only one Purohit. Nay, one Purohita may even do service for more than one king. Okay. So yeah, there is a position in the court of the king that was believed to be even superior to the king himself. That was the Purohita, the royal priest, somebody who is the personification or the manifestation of the state in human body, human bones and flesh. That was supposed to be the royal priest. Okay. Next up is there was also an influential bodies of the Brahmanas. Now when I say Brahmanas, I mean the priestly class. Okay. Forming a parishad, a general body of advisors on all matters, religious, political and judicial. For a sutra of Panini, the king is called Parishad Bala, one whose strength lies in the Parishad. And we definitely hear of administrative functions exercised by Parishad in later times. Okay, so there was a council of priests that guided the king in the discharge of the function of the state, because I would say for a king to be well versed in all the all the Vedas and everything else and everything related to philosophy and everything related to war wasn't practically possible in those days for an individual. Okay, so they would keep a council of priests to guide them. The Parishad was composed of at least 10 Brahmanas, which is 4 men who have completely studied the 4 Vedas. Okay, out of the 10, 4 were the people who had completely studied the Vedas. 3 men belonging to the 3 orders, a student, a householder and an ascetic. 1 who knows the Mimamsa. Mimamsa is one of the philosophies of our country that we are going to cover in another series after I'm done with the ancient history. And a teacher of the sacred law. These men must be well instructed, skilled in reasoning and free from covetousness. Okay. So there was a king and then there was a council of priests that was designed to guide him in the discharge of the functions of the state, because one individual tends to get corrupted. Not that 10 individuals are not susceptible to corruption, but alright. Dharma Sutras, the primitive ruler of a petty state. There is also some description about Madhuparka, meaning a mixture of honey and curd. Okay, this was something that was given to the people who were well versed in the Vedas. Okay, for every time they visit your place. Okay, let's say if somebody comes to your place and that person is well versed in the Vedas, you're supposed to feed him a concoction of curd and honey. But if somebody who comes to your place, even if a king, and if that person is not well versed in the Vedas, you're not supposed to feed them anything. According to Vashisht, all interest on money lent ceases to accrue on the death of the king and until the coronation of the new king. This is probably a recognition of the principle that the king represents the state. Okay, so there is some, like I said in the previous, the king was the one who represented the state. If there is no king, then it means there is no state. Okay, so if there is no state, whom shall you pay tax to? So if there is an interregnum, meaning if the king has died and there is nobody on the throne, then you are not supposed to pay taxes. Who is going to protect you? Now there are instances where in both, and we are also talked about this in the previous videos as well. Okay, earlier it might have been that the kingship was not hereditary. Okay, but with the trials and tribulations of time, it became hereditary. Because once that you are in a position of power, you wouldn't want to relinquish it. That is what power does to you. Okay. Kingly power was not very stable and kingship was not confined to the royal family. Okay, like I said, once there is a vacuum, there are many factors, there are many people who are, pretty much eager to usurp the power. Okay. All right. One very important thing during the age of the Upanishads was very noteworthy. This is on page number 492. Very noteworthy is the high ethical standard of the rules of battle. The use of poisoned weapons is strictly prohibited. One must not kill those who are helpless, ask for mercy, or offer submission by eating grass like cows. Okay, so this idea of surrendering. So whenever somebody surrenders in a battlefield, you usually wave a white flag. But in this part of the world, if you are supposed to surrender in a battlefield, you're supposed to eat the grass. Mimic eating grass like a cow, and this was an equivalent of waving a white flag of surrender. Okay. All right, that's it. We've reached the end of this video. That's all for this episode of Ancient History of Bharat. If you would want to read about this, read about the content that we have talked about in this video, you can read it on our social media platform, our account on the social media platform of X. We also go by the same name of Esports and Information on X as well. Okay, that's it for this video. Thank you for watching.